All right, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. So for the new people that haven't been here yet, that clicked on this video, I make videos almost every single week, and it's mostly of my bag, the Big Turbo ST. Got a Miata build on the way, kind of ready to a snag on that, but we'll get into that a little later. But for the people that's been here already, welcome back. But let's get into this video. So this video is going to be consisting of changing the water pump and timing belt on my 1995 Honda Del Sol. So my engine bay is extremely dirty. Ignore it. I do need to clean it. It's just been something I've been putting off. Kind of sort of got the car like this, but I just need to go in and clean it. But so I'm gonna make this video as detailed as possible. All right, so let me jack the car up and we can get started. So actually before I do that, let's kind of go over like the symptoms that you may have. So for one, like I said, car overheats. That's the most obvious. Another thing was my radiator cap was actually steaming at one point, and for some odd reason it kind of like threw coolant in the front part of this car. So that's why, don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming the coolant why my engine's dirty, but it is, this is all of this is coolant, like all this residue. But again, that's another thing that kind of gives it away. So you guys see, and again you'll see it once I take the timing cover off. So I saw coolant, you know, kind of sort of, I saw coolant like fly everywhere. Now you see the color of this residue. It's the same color that matches the residue that's behind the engine right there. So I, like, again, just using my common sense, that tells me that the water pump's leaking, so it must be bad. So like, again, some of this car troubleshooting stuff, it does require some common sense, and you just gotta piece the puzzles together. So yeah, let's get into this. Let me jack the car up, and then we'll go from there. So we got the wheel off. Got the car jacked up on jack stands. Now, first things first we're gonna do is we need to remove the valve cover, of course, the spark plug wires and the spark plugs. All right, so we have to take the valve cover off. So all of this, these are just 10 millimeters. And we'll take it off. So the reason why we're taking off the valve cover is because the valve cover actually has a lip on the actual, what do you call it, timing belt cover. So we have to take this off in order to take the timing belt cover off. Actually take this off. PC, I believe this is PC line to go into the throttle body / intake. So let's lift that. Make sure you guys don't lose your I believe these are like little gaskets. Make sure you don't lose them. I'll take mine off so I don't, because actually these are actually brand new. So let me put those right there. And off with it. It's gonna be two 17 millimeters because we got to take off the engine mount. All right, so I ran into a little snag. I have a 17 millimeter, but it shares the same socket as a 19 millimeter. I didn't know that the stud was this long, so there's no way I can put a socket in here. So again, we have to remove this motor mount to drop the engine. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove this bolt. It's still gonna drop it, so nonetheless we just have to support the engine with a jack, and then we'll continue with the installation. So it's gonna be the same size socket that is on the top, so it's gonna be 17 millimeter. Breaker bar right here, and it's gonna go to the left. So it did drop it a little bit. It's not gonna drop it too much as if you if you were to remove these, because it does have these little things on the side that kind of goes out and like hits this, but dropped it a little bit. So nonetheless, it should be enough for me to continue. So this is gonna be 10 millimeters right here. So 10 millimeter, 10 millimeter, 10 right there, and a 10 back here. So let's remove that, and then we should get this top cover off. So I got the top cover off. So as you can see, there's gonna be one right here and a bolt right here. And then I believe, yeah, I did remove one of the bolts for the bottom. Not big deal. I mean, we obviously had to take it off anyways. What we need to do now is we need to remove this lower pulley right here, right there, so that we can take the bottom cover off. So before we actually try to tackle that 17 millimeter bolt on the crank right there, or on the pulley right there, we are going to loosen the bracket for the alternator so that we can actually take the belt off of it first. So let's it's going to be a 12 millimeter bolt up here. See if I can get down there. May have to do it from the back. So 12 millimeter bolt. Make sure that you're loosening it, not tightening it. a little difficult to do it from the back. From right here. And to make my job easier, we'll just use a breaker bar. Slide that in there right there. And it's that simple. We'll go down below and we'll talk that. I believe the one on the bottom is a 14 millimeter. That one is gonna be right here on the back. We'll loosen that one. And again, we'll just use a breaker bar. Need to break it, just a little snap that you guys heard, and that should be good. So don't remove, just loosen. But once you loosen the top 12 millimeter bolt, and then you come down below, and you get that 14 back here. Again, don't remove, just loosen. Once you do that, then you should be able to kind of like move the alternator forward and back. You should be able to get the belt off. Alright, and just remember, when you put it back on, it's gonna go on the rear grooves, not the front. So we'll put this belt off to the side, we'll put it on top with everything else. Alright, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna remove this pulley right here. This is gonna be a 17 millimeter bolt right here. In order to take off the bottom cover, we need to remove this pulley right now, so that's what we're gonna do. Shout out to Migs. I've heard that is a pain to remove, so I actually was able to borrow a very, very helpful impact gun, so it should help us get that one off. Okay, so now to get off this pulley right here. So it's gonna be a 17 millimeter bolt, like I said. You can either do this with the impact, which I have here, or you can do it by hand. It is extremely hard. I've heard it is extremely hard to get it off. So what I did to kind of hold the pulley still is I just put like a little screwdriver in one of the holes so that, you know, it hits the top of this so that it stops moving. And then I'm gonna try to use a breaker bar and try to get it loose. Let's see how well that works. It's literally just bending it. Alright guys, so this is almost 8 hours later. I finally got the crank pulley bolt off. 8 hours. It took me 8 hours to get this one bolt off. Okay, so a lot of you may know, a lot of you probably heard that the crank pulley bolt is nothing to, like it's everybody knows it's infamous for that. It's literally very extremely hard to put on, or excuse me, to pull off, to take off. So I've tried numerous, I've broken, let me show you guys. I've broken one extension, I've broken two extension. Let me see, there's another one that I broke, oh, 3 extension. I've broken ratchets, so here's one ratchet that's broken. As you can tell, it's just free spinning. I've broken that one, there's another one around here that I broke, oh, this one. That just flew off. I've tried doing the starter method where you like kind of lock in the tool and you start the car and let it be the actual leverage. So the pulley spins this way, you would put like a wrench and you would let like the suspension or whatever hold it, and you would obviously let the wrench go the other way. So as it's spinning this way, the wrench is going that way and it like kind of pulls it off. That didn't work, and that's how I ended up breaking these. So literally I even tried using leverage with a breaker bar. That didn't work. I've tried putting the socket up top and having the breaker bar like that. Nothing worked. So let me tell you the trick to it. So 1, have an impact, and 2, have an impact socket. That's literally, I spent 8 hours trying to get this off. It took me literally, I'm not kidding, literally 15 seconds to get it off with the impact, Milwaukee, shout out Milwaukee, the impact and the impact socket. Literally 15 seconds, I'm not kidding. And it's off. So now that it's off, we can literally get everything else off and get to the core of this video. Okay, so now that we have the bolt off, pretty sure you guys know this too. This may be hard to get off or not, but do not lose that key right there. So let me try to, that little key right there, the little square thing, do not lose that. I don't know what happens if you do lose it, but just don't lose it. Alright, so now that I have the bottom timing cover off, so it's going to be a 10 right here, 10 millimeter right here, and then another 10 right here. So that comes off. You can see where the water pump was leaking too. That's where all that residue is coming from. And that pretty much gives it away that it was water pump. So you see all that white stuff? That's just leaking coolant. All of that residue is the water pump leaking coolant. So what's next that we have to do is we need to take off the timing belt. So in order to do that, we need to loosen the tensioner, which is this right here. So if you loosen it, you pull it down and then you want to tighten it so that it's out of the way, and then we can take off the timing belt. So once you tighten that pulley in that direction, move so you can see. Once you tighten the pulley in that direction, you'll see that you have slack in the belt, and then you can remove the belt. And then we'll go over top dead center once I replace the belt on the water pump. One bracket I forgot to remove would be this bracket right here. That's kind of linked to the motor mount. So we got to remove that so that we can take this belt off. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the water pump. So as you can see visually, I believe there's 3 bolts, or maybe 4 right underneath this portion of it right here. But as you can see, there's 1, 2, 3 on it. So we have 1, we have 2, and then right down there we have 3, and it should be 10 millimeters. So take that off. Now when you take this off, there may be coolant to come out, because again, remember, this is the engine portion of it, so there may be coolant coming out, so make sure you have a bucket down below to catch it. But we're going to take that off, and then we'll replace that, put the timing belt on, and then we just got to reverse everything that we did. Alright, so it looks like we missed a step. So after you take all 4 bolts off, remember they're 10 millimeters on the water pump, so there's 2 up top and 2 on the bottom, 1 behind the little pulley thing. And so we have to take off this. So this is actually still connected to the water pump, so we need to take off this. I believe it's a 14 millimeter bolt right here. Obviously we're gonna have to pull that up, and then we should be able to take the water pump off. So the water pump's out, and it looks brand new because look at the inside. But they did say they made this hole for a reason, and that hole basically means that if you ever get like corrosion, not corrosion, but like any basically any leakage out of it, that basically means that there's like some type of seal inside the water pump that went bad, and that's the reason why it's leaking. So let's hope that this actually, because look at all that, look at that. Let me try to put that light better. Look at all that, it leaked all on the block. That's all from the water pump leaking all that coolant. So this has 100% be the problem. If it's not, then it's the radiator. But either way, it needed to be changed, so I'm glad that we did it. So we have the new water pump on, and we have the new timing belt on. So just remember, that's basically how the timing belt goes. Alright, so top dead center time. So let me place this light so that we can all see. Alright, so top dead center, you're gonna have a line right here. If you can see that line right there, it's an indent too, so let me kind of clear that so you can see it. Line right there, a line right here, and then it looks like it says, it's supposed to say top, but it looks like it says tip. But it's indented too. Yeah, it's like a TI, and that looks like a P to me. But that needs to be straight up, and these need to be lined up right with the valve cover. So that's top dead center for the top. And then if we go on the bottom right here, I probably should have showed you why the belt was off, but now you can't really see it because the belt's kind of in the way. But there's going to be an arrow. Let me see if I can see it first. That little notch that's on the little groove right there needs to be lined up with that little pointy arrow thing right there. Right, it's right behind the belt. It's kind of hard to see, but it needs to be lined up to that. So that's top dead center for the bottom. It's 2 a.m. in the morning. I've been working on this since 10 a.m. So man, it's been a long time coming. I'm about to do the first start. I'm a little nervous, not gonna lie. Heart's pumping, but oh Lord, let's see. Come on, car gods, please. So allow me to provide you guys with an update. So after we changed the water pump and the timing belt on the Del Sol, the engine ran perfectly fine. So there was no problems with the timing belt whatsoever. But the problem did not go away. The car was still overheating, which didn't really make sense. So I didn't get it on camera, but I did put coolant into the radiator. And when I did that, it actually leaked right, not on this one of course, the old one, but right after I did that, it was leaking right here below and right in the front. So that told me that obviously I had a bad radiator. So with that being said, it was actually 3 problems. So it was the water pump that was leaking coolant out of the system, and then it was the radiator that was actually leaking coolant out of the system too. But when doing so out of the radiator, it actually allowed air to get in. So I had air bubbles in the system along with leaking coolant. I changed the water pump and timing belt, of course. And then I went ahead and changed the radiator along with the radiator hoses. And then when doing so, as far as putting coolant in the system, what you want to do to allow air bubbles to get out, you want to get in the car, turn the heater all the way on high. You want to start the car. Of course, you want to put coolant in the radiator until you can't no more. But the first time you do it, it's gonna get full. You want to kind of like it's making noise. You kind of want to press on the radiator hoses, so because obviously it's gonna allow coolant to go in again, and it's gonna actually make the air bubbles come up. So that's one way of doing it, is of course pressing this. But once you do it and it's not allowing it to go down, you want to start the car. The car is gonna of course do its thing, and then once you squeeze it some more while the car started, you'll see air bubbles come up, and then you'll notice that the heater is getting hot inside the car. And you just want to you want to keep it running for about, I had it running for about 20-25 minutes, and pretty much all the air bubbles were out of the system. So after changing the water pump, timing belt wasn't really necessary, but it was kind of preventative maintenance. But after changing the water pump, the radiator and the radiator hoses, and they call it bleeding the system the correct way as far as adding coolant. The problem, I mean, there's no more overheating, and the car actually stays cooler than it did before, of course, with the new radiator and the water pump. So we have a perfect running engine now. So one tip I did want to give you guys when you're doing the water pump and you're putting the timing belt back on, is when you're putting the timing belt on, you're gonna have to misalign the camshaft a little bit just to put it on. And then what you want to do is you want to turn the crankshaft a total of 2 times, and you'll notice that the crankshaft and the camshaft would be both at top dead center. And then what you want to do is you want to put all the slack on the timing belt on the tensioner, and then you just loosen the tensioner, and it should you know, get up all that slack, and then that's pretty much it. But yeah, I hope this video helped one of you guys out there. But we'll catch you next time in the next video.